Today, I'm going to try to draw this Orthodox church between a few of these cypress trees in Tbilisi, Georgia, and I don't think I need to tell you why I chose this as my reference for today's drawing. There's something just majestic and grandiose about a scene like this one, and it would have been a shame had I not given it a try. Speaking of shame, have you subscribed to the channel yet? I sure hope so. If you're new here, I'm learning to draw while I travel the world. I'm currently in the country of Georgia, and I'm 93 days into this process. I'm slowly improving and always moving around. So if that sounds neat to you, stick around. I'd love to have you. Anyway, I love this drawing. I love it so much, and I don't care if I'm spoiling it. If you click off now, well, that's your prerogative, I guess. But genuinely, not only was this just so much fun to draw, the final product surprised me quite a bit. And I'm expecting, I don't know, something of a crash and burn tomorrow, because I never draw anything I really like without following it up with something I really don't. Even though the video is sped up, you can probably tell that I really took my time in the beginning, really working out how to craft the composition, and that worked in my favor. I knew that rushing through this part would be short-sighted, so I put a lot of effort into setting this up with care. The first thing I wanted to do was cut out the areas where I planned to put the trees. I made sure to keep them slender because I knew that I'd be filling them in, so I could always slightly extend or widen them by drawing over top the church. I was originally concerned that these empty spaces would make it difficult or impossible for me to draw the church, but actually, counterintuitively, at least for me, because I couldn't see through the trees anyway, like in person, it didn't make any difference. In fact, I think it might have made things easier for me. With the trees blocking out these vertical areas, I could focus on individual slices of the church rather than attempt to digest the entire structure. The trees, being these relatively straight vertical lines, also made figuring out the perspective much simpler. They acted as these sort of guidelines, constantly reminding me when an angle went up or down or left or right. It's easy to lose my sense of perspective sometimes, especially if I'm looking dramatically down or up like this. So yeah, to my surprise, the trees in the way were a big help. Speaking of the trees, and I suppose this composition in general, it reminds me just how important it is, at least for me, to seek out some of the more unique perspectives. And I don't mean for this channel, not necessarily, I guess, but I think sometimes the key to making pretty things, whether that's a well-crafted photograph or yes, maybe a drawing, is finding the unobvious ways of seeing those things. This church is maybe not the best example because there aren't many other ways to see it. It's kind of pushed back into a secluded neighborhood. But I can think of hundreds of photo opportunities, for instance, where the standard photo, the one all the tourists take to memorialize their trip, could be made so much, I guess prettier or more interesting by sort of defying that view in favor of something more personal. So if there were a dozen different vantage points from which this church could be seen, something like this one would fall under that umbrella. Maybe from here I sat on a bench and ate a snack with my wife while we talked about an album we've been enjoying or a meal we should try to make. And then I looked up and I saw this view of the church, my view of this spectacular structure. I think there's meaning to that. And even though others won't implicitly know it, the photograph or the drawing or whatever it is, even the description of the thing in writing or in conversation, whatever, it will retain some essence of it. Granted, maybe some famous default views are just jaw-dropping by design where there are no alternatives, and I can think of a few, but I'd venture to guess that for most things, even like commonplace everyday things, there's a version of it that's unobvious and personal if you make it so, and at least in photography, will result in the more thoughtful and oftentimes just better and certainly more interesting iteration. And while that's not my primary intention with these references, it's definitely something in my head, and I hope to imbue each one with more and more of that. I think it cuts to the heart of the individual, their tastes and their values, and makes for a much less boring world, at least with respect to art. Okay, well, I bet you weren't expecting that tangent today. Anyway, as you can see, like I said, things have come together pretty nicely, and I'm loving every second of it. I decided to go bold with everything here, which is unlike me, but I don't think this would have worked had I chosen to be subtle. The trees required, in my opinion, either super vague detail, largely consisting of negative space, or this, what I end up doing. I chose this, and I felt it would be awkward or lacking if I left the rest of the drawing really light and airy. One thing that was of some concern was how the sun is shining from the right side, and that throws the entire left side into shadow. Luckily, it wasn't too harsh, but I was worried that I'd get stuck on that and get carried away with trying to replicate it in the drawing. Fortunately, I made it a minimal part of my shading process, but I don't even think that was necessary. I could have omitted it altogether, but either way, I'm glad I didn't let it consume me. And that's it. Like I said, I'm feeling really good about this one, and I'd love to know what you think about it. Some things worth noting. One, these oniony domes and their patterns or texture or seams, whatever you call them, was hard to pin down, especially from below. I know that mine aren't perfect, but I did try to pay attention to them, so I think they're okay. I'll take it. Two, the texture and the shading of the trees, kind of just scribbly lines, but I think they turned out great. And if you believe it, I made them while mostly looking at them, like staring up at them. I still went back and forth to make sure I didn't lose my place, but it was this like quasi-blind sketch process, and it was extremely helpful. Anyway, I'm sure I could think of 100 other things, but I'm about done, and you've probably already clicked off the video anyway, so let's leave it at that. I appreciate you for taking the time to watch this one, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.